And one. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. Each week we try to find awesome guests. Today is no exception. This guy, he is going to take us all the way back to the fifth grade and what happened there. And I get, like we say each week, we get a lot of people listening that want to understand what it's like to start your own business. So we're going to do a deeper dive on that today with my guest. I'm honored to be hanging out with Garr Russell. How are you today, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Dave. I'm happy. Freshly showered,
Awesome.
got a coffee in my cup, and ready to talk business and life and all the things.
Awesome. So you're the founder and chief fire starter. This is a first for us. We've never had a chief fire starter on our show at a company called Fireside RV Rental. So fill us in, first of all, on what Fireside RV Rental is.
Yeah, Fireside's one of our businesses that we own, and it's similar to some of our other businesses. It really started from pain, and God used it and turned it into purpose. It's an RV rental company, and it
Okay.
started by I bought my wife an RV for our 10-year wedding anniversary. And so there we are in Grand Haven, Michigan. I think I'm the best husband ever. Brand new, beautiful camper. And she walks out of the camper and tells me she's going home. And I thought, what in the world? She's going home. What did I forget? And then realized she's like, no, I'm going home and I'm not coming back. This is horrible.
Oh
And
no.
her defense, she was 7 months pregnant, chasing a toddler. It's the middle of July. And so there I sat, by the campfire. In my mind, I say, the marshmallow fell off into the fire, and there was the next thing that went wrong. But what I did is I literally I threw the camper up for rent on Craigslist,
Okay.
and one thing led to the next. Fast forward to this is actually our 10-year anniversary of Fireside, and now it's a franchise. We have 70 locations around the country. We do
Okay.
thousands and thousands of bookings every year, and uh,
Wow. So you basically you bought an RV. It was an epic fail from the sounds of it. Did she recover? Did she like it after she had the baby, or was it always like, yeah, this wasn't for me type of thing?
no, she recovered. She came to her senses. No. We ended up actually full-time RVing for 5 years with our kids while we built this company.
Wow.
So we got to travel the country and do all kinds of fun things. And we actually just got back into a house about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
sir.
That's pretty cool. So you took a something that was a passion for you, turned it into a business, which again, we're going to unpack that today. For the listener though, again, as we do each week, we talk about this, it's a privilege to start a company. It's a privilege to live in a country that we do get the ability to have these freedoms. So, and as we always say, Gar's way is Gar's way. Your way might be completely different as we unpack his journey. Just find some things in there that you can really relate to that will help you. So awesome. Well, so I want to go all the way back to fifth grade. So fill me in because it seems like you and your dad had a little difference of what happened in the fifth grade. But fill me in on your recollection, and maybe we'll get your dad on sometime to ask him what his recollection was.
I like that, Dave. No one's ever said that before because I write about this in my real estate story, how I went to my dad with the business idea.
Yeah.
But a book I've written since is called His Story. And
Okay.
it's my story through the eyes of God. And God brought me to that moment and showed me the truth of that
Sure.
moment, which, at the time it seemed like, oh my gosh, my dad has, shot all my dreams down and, what a horrible dad. But the Lord actually brought some truth to me in regards to that. So I like how you say we should hear your dad's side of the story because there is some, reality. But
Yeah.
basically, there's a scripture that says the gifts and callings of God are without repentance, which means that God
Sure.
puts certain gifts and talents and skills and abilities inside of us before we're even born,
Yep.
whether we're going to use them for His glory or not. And God created me to be an entrepreneur. And so in fifth grade, I went to my dad with a business proposal. I was going to start a lawn care business, which was all fine and dandy. But in my proposal, I needed $500 because I needed to buy several lawnmowers that my friends were going to push around. While I
Okay.
was out selling, signing up accounts, I was running the business. I was working on the business and they were working in
Yeah,
the business. And
sure,
my dad really was not an entrepreneur. He always worked for somebody for the most part.
sure.
And he'll tell you, I'm a big risk taker. He's not.
Yep.
Me and my dad talk every week, and every time I tell him something, he's like, "Okay, now just be careful, son." Still, I'm almost 50 years old, and he's still telling me to be careful.
Yeah,
But what happened in that moment was a lie was placed in my mind because my dad said, "Well, that's lazy.
yeah,
You go learn the business and then do it." But in my
sure,
mind, what I heard was that my dad thought I was lazy, and
sure.
so that lie followed me for several years to come until I really received the revelation that um, yeah, that could sound lazy, right?
Yeah.
But that's how entrepreneurs think differently, than others.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's really important as we kick this off today to think about for the listener, what lies are you listening to every day? I'm not good enough. I don't make enough money. I'm not smart enough to do my own business. There's a lot of people that get stuck in the fear zone and they never leave that because there's all these thoughts that come through. So, did you have people around you? I mean, like, so your dad kind of puts this in your brain, it's a combination of him putting it in and you receiving it that way. Did you have people around you, Gar, that were like encouraging you in fifth grade to be like a teacher, another family member? Did you have somebody that was on the encouragement side for you?
So I actually did. I'm sure many of y'all are familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Well, I got a stepfather around that time, and his name was actually Gary too. My dad's name is Gary, and his name was Gary. So I call him in my history book, I call him Gary 2.0. And it was kind of
Sure,
like the rich dad, poor dad scenario. My stepdad taught me a lot about sales and entrepreneurship and just, all the things. So yeah, I did have someone in my life like that. Unfortunately, uh, a lot of my growing up with Gary 2.0, he was working through lots of wounds and hurts and stuff from his previous marriage. So it wasn't a well-rounded, school that I was enrolled in there
sure.
with Gary
Yeah,
2.0. But
sure.
so I used a lot of my gifts, man. I ended up becoming a very successful drug dealer. I had all kinds of hustles that were, um, not legal, and
Sure.
uh, and so I was an entrepreneur, all through those years,
Yeah,
and it was really later in life, once I gave my life to the Lord in 2003, and I actually got fired shortly after from my job for sharing my faith. That I was pushed back into entrepreneurship, but doing it, with the guidance of the Lord.
sure. Yeah, wow. So you think about, fifth grade, how successful did you get the $500 first of all from your dad?
No, never got the $500 from my dad. Funny story is my cousin actually ended up doing my idea, and he owns one of the largest lawn care businesses. He's actually gone on to be a developer, a real estate developer. He's very, very successful.
Okay,
But what I've learned from that on the other side too, he doesn't talk to any of our family. He's completely cut us off. Money, greed, all the things taken over for him.
sure.
So in that
Wow.
too, it was another beautiful, lesson. And one of the things I love to say is life happens for you, not to you.
Yeah,
Romans 8:28, God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And it's so true. All these things that tried to control the narrative in my mind of who I was, if it
sure,
wasn't for going to the Lord and asking him what the truth was,
sure.
I could have been stuck that victim my whole life, but instead I was
Yeah,
able to go and hear the truth and get the reality. It says in John 8:32 to 8:36, Jesus says, "And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." And that word truth in the Greek is actually the word reality. So, right, we have this false reality in our mind, but when we can get set free from that, we can actually see the truth, and that truth sets us free. And that's what happened for me. That truth set me free and has allowed me to go on to grow as an entrepreneur and help
sure.
others do the same.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I think that, for people listening, like, Gar saying, whether you believe that you were created as an entrepreneur or you got it, instilled in you later in life, whatever, if you're listening right now and you are thinking that you want to start a business, I think again, congratulations. What was like the first step for you? I mean, so how did you even know in fifth grade, Gar, to start to do a business plan? I mean, was that just come natural to you? Did you do research? How did you kind of start on that journey?
Yeah, I think it was, just very natural for me. So, I just a one page of here's the idea, here's the amount of money I need. So I didn't know the word entrepreneur or business plan or any of that stuff in fifth grade. It
Sure.
literally was just something that was inside of me. Like I think of my 9 year old Isabella. She can just sit down with pen and paper and just draw. It's just
Yeah.
inside of her. She's an artist,
Sure.
and we've done things to help her grow. We have her do art classes and stuff and things like that. And she's
Yeah.
always been very in tune with animals. I remember her as 3 years old. She walks up to her house and she's got a snake wrapped around her arm and she's kissing it. Like she just, right? And now she rides horses and stuff. Like it's just those things that are naturally put inside of us. And it's something that God has really encouraged us on with our four kids is
Sure.
look for those natural bents and the talents and skills and abilities that are unique to them, and then help them hone them in and flourish and grow in those. Kind of like your sign there says in the back, growing on purpose, right? We tell our kids, you were created on purpose for a
Yeah.
purpose.
Sure.
So one of my number one goal outside of on top of anything, is to help my kids fulfill their calling. So part of that is me recognizing the gifts, talent, skills, and abilities in them to know, okay, what is their specific purpose, and then helping them grow in the skills they need to fulfill that purpose.
Sure. Well, and I think you mentioned Bob, right? Was it Bob?
Gary 2.0, yeah, my
Gary,
stepdad. Yep.
Gary 2.0. You mentioned Gary 2.0 and that positive influence that you had from from the business aspect. So, for people listening, if you have this natural skill that you believe you were created with, I think it's really important to number one, investigate that. Number two, I think is just as important is find people around you that will share that with you because again, if you have people around you that are saying, nah, that'll never work, you're going to buy into that, lie. And then that's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are wannabe entrepreneurs, they never really turn into a real one, so to speak, because somebody's squashed that down. So, I appreciate you sharing that. So we moved through like high school, and then so how did you go from this entrepreneur fifth grade kid wanting to, you know, start this business? How did you go from there to like deciding that maybe drugs were the way to go? What kind of precipitated that change?
It's really just trying to be cool, bury the pain of parents being divorced, all the things that just, led me down that road. uh, Naturally, I dropped out of high school, or I got expelled in ninth grade from one high school. I dropped out of another one the following year, and it was just right. All the pain that I had from my parents divorcing and the wounds and lies and all the things that just kind of kept me going down that road.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I got raided for running a drug home and incarcerated to where I started to think about life's choices, and then after I got out of jail, I got a job, and I met a guy named Skip who he was the foreman and I was the laborer. We put the traffic cones and stuff out on the road, and
Okay.
Skip would be driving and be, hey, I'm driving. Do me a favor, read me my Bible while I drive, will you? And so I would read him his Bible, and then just God did what He does. One thing led to the
Sure.
next, and
Wow, that's pretty cool.
December 23rd, 2003, right there at the time clock, I asked Jesus to take the wheel of my life. And then that same job, I started getting promotions, all the things. And about 2 years later, I ended up getting fired for sharing my faith.
Yeah.
And really, again, life happens for you, not to you, right? The Lord used that to shove me back into the entrepreneurial venture.
Did you know when you were a kid, when you were younger, that, I mean, did you have the foresight to think you were eventually going to own your own businesses? Because I know you went into corporate America for a little while and then ventured out on your own. And I think that's where a lot of people are listening right now, Gar, is they're in corporate America and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know how to, I want to start my own business, but I don't know how. So, kind of to address that person that's listening right now, that is, whether they're in a dead end job or a fulfilling job, whatever, they just know there's something inside them that is really crying to try something. Maybe it's even a side hustle, whatever it is. But, how do you fan that flame for somebody listening right now that is really on the edge of their seat? How do you fan that flame of entrepreneurship?
I talk about this in my real estate story. I call it entrepreneurs. And I put a couple indicators in there that you're probably an entrepreneur. You're always thinking of a way to improve things. You're always thinking, man, if there was this service, that would make life easier for these people or for me. These different things where the mind is always turning, and you're just not satisfied, right, with your corporate job. Because there are those who are. They
Yep.
go and they punch the clock, and that's great. They're satisfied. But if you're not, if you always feel like there's something more, those are all indicators, that you want to step into entrepreneurship. And if that's the case too, I encourage people, especially recently, I've got this revelation to actually go a little bit further and think, okay, do I want to be an entrepreneur or do I want to be a business owner? Because
Mm.
I've come to the conclusion that there's actually a difference.
Okay.
Business owners, uh, they work in their business. Entrepreneurs, they work on their business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm constantly finding, okay, what systems, processes, what's the people that I can put in place to get this thing running without me
Sure.
to where I can go on to the next adventure. Where a
Sure.
business owner, which is either one is fine. It's just figuring out which one you are. A business
Yeah.
owner, it's instead of working for the corporation, you work and own the corporation. That's a business owner. So you buy a restaurant and you're there and you're working at the restaurant,
Yeah.
which the reason I bring that up is we actually bought a restaurant in May. Last May, as a family, we
Oh,
bought a restaurant, and we all work there on Saturdays together as a family because we choose to, because
sure.
it's something we're doing to help teach our kids, customer service and sales and all the things, that come with that. So,
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I think, and to kind of use your example back in fifth grade, you were working on the business by going out and not necessarily cutting the grass. You were out trying to build the business and sell and, talk to the customers. If you would have been a business owner, you would have bought one lawnmower and then just went from house to house yourself and did that grass cutting. And again, I love the fact that you say neither one's right or wrong because we teach the same thing every week, that it's like there's no difference between me and someone that works at a corporation other than, a couple of little logistic things. We still work, we still honor the Lord, we still do whatever we can, in this world. But I think working in the business versus on is a really helpful way to look at this. And in the business is a business owner, and on the business is an entrepreneur. And again, pick which one. And I feel like there's freedom once you find that spot. Did you know early on, like even in fifth grade, that it was, even though you didn't know, like you said, what entrepreneur is, you had a desire more to work, on the business than in the business, it sounds like back then. Is that still the way it is today?
yeah, for sure it is. We own several businesses and we got our hands in several different things. And that's just, yeah, how I'm wired is to find ways to systematize and automate and all the things, and back to your question too of, what would somebody do that's in corporate America and they're like, hey, I know I want to do more. uh yeah, you could definitely start a side hustle. What we do at Fireside, it's a franchise. Franchising is a great uh, avenue to go down because you're purchasing a proven system and process and all the things. So you're instantly stepping into, everything instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go just start XYZ business. Well, then you got to do
Yeah.
all the things from scratch. Or two, there's this whole generation, of baby boomers that are retiring right now. They're literally just shutting down their businesses. They
Yeah.
don't have the child that wants to take it over. They may not even have the best books in order and all the things. They're just. I have a partner of mine. He just bought a cart repair business,
Hmm.
and he literally just took it over. The guy was shutting down the golf cart repair business and then selling the real estate. So
Okay.
he negotiated an agreement with him, and he took over the business. The employees were in place. The people were in place. He just took it in, added his touch to it, and
Sure.
it's off and running. The restaurant that I bought, I was able to
Yeah.
buy that on seller financing at really good rate, and we came in, we added our touch to it, and it's humming like a whistle.
Awesome. What kind of food?
It's a small little diner. It's actually we're in Okeechobee, Florida. The blue dot in the middle of Florida, Lake Okeechobee. Uh,
Okay.
we're at the northern tip of that. It's the oldest diner in our little town. It's 75-year celebration this year, and it's a
Oh,
breakfast and
nice.
lunch Monday through Saturday, 6:30 to 2, and we
Nice.
absolutely love it.
That's fantastic. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I kind of want to unpack that franchise thought process, Gar, because I think, again, there might be some hidden gems that the listener hasn't considered before. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Honored to be hanging out with Gar Russell, founder and chief fire starter at Fireside RV Rental. I'm assuming fire starter doesn't have anything to do with pyrotechnics. I just want to make sure that you don't have a because when I was a kid, man, I loved starting fires, and that got me into trouble, obviously, in ways that I'm glad I don't have to deal with anymore. And I didn't have
Yeah, I
to
was
deal with
gonna make a
my
T-shirt up that says "We are fire starters," and I'm like, I don't know, that
kids.
it doesn't give enough context where people were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless you have the explanation on the back. Um, so you're in corporate America back in the day, and then all of a sudden was your introduction to fire from the fire side and the franchise side of it, was that the RV debacle that you had with your wife? Was that kind of the first exposure that you had to it, or were there some other things previous that you had exposure to?
Yeah, so yeah, with that, the camper incident with my wife, I started renting my RV on Craigslist. Then I messaged some friends. I said, "Hey, do you want me to rent your RV?" And then just kind of one thing led to the next. And then you kind of go down the rabbit trail, right? I started getting in some Facebook groups for people who were renting
Okay,
their campers, sharing what I
sure.
was learning. And then from there, we opened our second location, and things just naturally, when you talk about entrepreneurship and people that want to get into entrepreneurship and business owning, I love the saying by my friend Gabriel that is, forward movement brings clarity. So I just kept taking steps forward, contributing in these groups, and then
Sure.
the next thing was there was some guy in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan who said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I'll start a location up here for you." And I said, "All right, well, tell you what, I'll just give you a location and we'll kind of work it out together." And so he
Yeah.
was my first location, and then I created what was called a business in a box, and I think I sold it for like $1,000, and then it went up to 5,000, and then it led to us franchising, and then, yeah, here we are now with 70 franchises around the country.
And so when you first started doing your Craigslist on there, did you have a job? Were you in corporate at that point, or was that a side hustle, or did that kind of become your job right away?
So I actually had another company at the time. It was a credit counseling company, which is another
Okay.
pain to purpose business. When I gave my life to the Lord in 2003, I had some credit to clean up. So, I was trying to, I'm like, all right, I want to buy a house now. I'm going to be an
Sure.
adult. So I started, in my job, I would get laid off during the winter for 3 months. So I went to the library, started getting books on credit and finances and how all that stuff works, dealing with collectors. And I fixed up my own credit. Then when I got fired from my job, I found a gentleman at church who had a credit counseling company. So I asked him if I could shadow him. I shadowed him. I ended up going and working for him. One thing led to the next. Learned he was doing some things that were not above board, and so he agreed to let me sign off on my no compete, and I started a credit counseling company. And from there, it just we had that company for about a decade. I authored several books on credit. We won different awards, and that was at a point where I had staff running it for me. I was I was very it was very passive for me, and so that
Sure.
allowed me to throw the time and energy into to building the fire side business once it came about.
Sure. Well, and I think there's probably somebody listening right now that's thinking, "Oh my gosh, credit company, lawn care, fires, RV rental, like it feels really scattered." And I'm just curious if there was intentionality there, or was it really, I mean, for somebody listening, I think there's plenty of people. I know when I started my second business, the one I have now, I would like do anything for anybody just to get the thing started. I'd be like, I'll coach on whatever. And as you get more successful, you start to niche down more. Did you feel like you were scattered? Did that feel like, oh my gosh, I'm all over the place, or did it feel pretty intentional for you?
No, it didn't feel like that. And we actually had a couple other things going too, because I had people and I had processes in place. So at that point, as an entrepreneur, right? I'm not operating as a business owner at this point. Operating
Yep.
as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
My job was simple. It was to cast the vision to my team, remind them, hey, this is where we are, this is where we're going, this is why we're
Yep.
going there, this is, and continually find people and processes and softwares and systems. So we had that, the credit counseling. We also had a business funding business. We had the RV rentals. We had a real estate business as well. We were doing
Mm.
flips, and we were doing long-term holds. And so for all those businesses, we had people in place. So, my main, kind of like back to the rich dad, poor dad, the rich dad, what would he do in the book? He would, people would come into the office, meet with him, and then he's done with his work for the day. So that was the same thing that was happening with us is
Sure.
we'd meet with our team, we'd meet with the people, and then, we'd go about and it's really interesting in entrepreneurship, in my opinion, if it's done correctly, you actually have a lot more free time on your hands than you have time working. Because what you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be standing back from all of it and really thinking of the next big idea or the next big move. But you can
Yeah.
only do that if you have that free time and your hands are in the middle of every single thing. And to do that too, you got to be able to delegate and let go of things and trust people
Yeah.
and empower them. That right there is a very scary move in entrepreneurship.
Well, and I'm guessing that's a huge difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur is a business owner is probably never not busy because they're always in the business. There's always someone to call back. There's always business opportunity, business development. There's always some growth things that you as a business owner have. If you're an entrepreneur, like you said, Gar, you kind of take that back seat approach and watch others and serve others and enable others to do their job. So is it hard for you? Are there times where you want to, like, when you show up on Saturday at the restaurant, are there times that you want to like jump in and change things, or are you pretty much a hands-off guy and you're okay with that?
So on Saturdays, I'm there working because we're there intentionally as a family. We've got our four children there with us. So the Russell family is there intentionally all working.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's really, to me, it's I'm not working at the restaurant on Saturday. It's ministry and it's mentoring my children. It's teaching them
Sure.
and preparing them. Uh, so yeah, it's pretty easy for me the way I'm wired to kind of stand back and watch stuff. And two, as you grow as an entrepreneur, you realize uh, no matter who's making the decision, mistakes are going to happen. And I love to say we're either winning or we're learning. There's no such thing as losing. We're winning or we're learning. Like I just met with my marketing team yesterday for Fireside, and we've got some Facebook ads going, and we spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. And we had
Sure.
this one marketing funnel that I thought by now would have been figured out by my team. And I just encourage them, hey guys, uh, we're learning here together. So like for those of y'all who ever done anything with a marketing company, they'll tell you, well, it takes about 90 days to figure this
Yeah.
out, right? We got to collect
Yep.
data and gather metrics and this and that. So if you remember that, like, hey, we're learning here. This is a learning process. Uh, then it's all good. You realize it's not as serious, and and I call it a reaction versus a response. Like we can get all worried and react, or we can think things through. And this is where, as an entrepreneur, you got to have that time to process and think and really, a lot of my day yesterday, I spent several hours walking, and I was at an Airbnb of mine, sitting in the hot tub reading and thinking, you know.
Yeah,
So to my employees or even my wife, that
yeah,
would make no sense. Like, you
yeah,
lazy bum, why don't you do something? But no, I'm thinking, I'm processing, I'm working through things, and then man, you come up with that next big idea or that next big step, and
sure.
that's the whole reason behind it for everybody.
So did you come up with anything good yesterday sitting in the hot tub?
Yeah, actually, I did. It was pretty cool because when I worked for my stepdad Gary 2.0, he sold breads, and I learned a lot about sales from him. He had his own bread recipes, and I thought on my walk yesterday, man, we could take some of those bread recipes that I used to sell with him, and we could integrate those into our restaurant. I hadn't thought about that
Sure,
in years. He passed away years ago, and I haven't sold bread with him for 30 years,
yeah,
And I thought,
sure,
wow, what a cool way to honor him. It creates another stream of revenue for the business because we're selling our own bread. Because our
sure.
restaurant, it's a small little diner and it's maxed out. I mean,
Okay,
we're at capacity. We're not going to expand it. We're not. So what I thought was the only thing we could do now is start to incorporate products that people could take with them when they leave,
sure.
right? So that
Yeah,
was my idea yesterday, and I told my wife. She loved it. She started looking online for like bakeries that we could send recipes to and start doing it. So yeah, that was my big idea yesterday. And actually I had put it on. I have this list where I just jot down thoughts. At the end of the
sure,
day, I'll look at them, see if I like them or not, and then I'll delete them.
sure.
So I actually had deleted the thought last night, and then as you and I were talking here today, and I was remembering my stepdad, I actually put it back on my list because I thought, you know what? No, that is a good, solid idea. It
Sure.
honors my what I've learned from my dad. Those
Yep.
recipes are recipes that uh, that I could use, and yeah, so that was the big idea
Well,
yesterday.
no, that's great. And I think it's really smart when you think about, like you said, you max out. I mean, if you're open 6:30 to 2 and your tables are full, then you're pretty much done, other than if you raise the price on your menu, right? That's the only way to really increase your sales. So I love the fact that you're trying to find other ways to do that. I'm thinking like back to the franchise piece. So if I'm a novice in and I have never done a business before, but I really want to. I feel like the franchise is a smart way to go because a lot of it's pre-done for you. There's, somebody's already walked that path, so to speak. But do you get a lot of flexibility to do your own ideas in a franchise situation as well?
Yeah, depending on which franchise offering you're going with, you definitely do. I always say it's your business. So it's your call, like
Yeah,
whatever route you want to go with. We do have brand standards, but for the most part, yeah, you can figure out kind of what's your unique niche and offering and stuff like that. The thing that I'd encourage folks on is, yeah, franchising is definitely great because here's the system, the process, here's your next step, here's the onboarding,
yep,
all the things. But
sure,
the thing that I've learned the last couple of years, uh, regardless of plugging into a proven system, that there's still a process that you're going to walk through stepping into owning a business, right? Because you're going to realize things are going to come to surface. You're going to realize like, oh, I'm really good with spreadsheets and numbers and data and budgeting, but
yep,
oh my gosh, I have to talk to people. I'm an
yeah,
introvert, right? Like there's things that will come to surface
sure,
that you'll have to confront, right? Um, I'm actually writing a book about it right now called The Salesman's Guide to Evangelism because I there's such a correlation between selling and evangelism, right? You're
sure,
putting out
sure,
your faith in your product or your faith in God, and you have
yep,
to overcome objections and all the things, right? So you're going to learn that there's still things that you have to work through. Can you hire somebody to do sales for you? Sure. But typically, when you're starting a business, you're not going out and hiring a bunch of staff. Why? Because you're bootstrapping, you're trying to keep overhead low. And before
right,
you bring in somebody to sell for you, well, you need to learn the business first to make sure they're selling it properly and all the things. So, But yeah, franchising is definitely a great way. That's why like multi-level marketing is such a great way to get into entrepreneurship, right? Because that confronts one of the biggest fears of most people, which is selling. That's why salesmen are one of the top paid people out there because
Sure.
they've overcome the fear of rejection and they know it's just a numbers game.
Right.
Hey, if I talk to 10 people, two of them are going to sign up. It's just a numbers game.
Right.
But yeah, franchising, multi-level marketing, there's definitely proven systems that you can plug into. And the other thing about it too is remember, you're always winning or you're learning. 50% of first-time businesses fail according to the, SBA. And
Yeah.
in franchising, the failure rate is a lot lower, but
Sure.
still, I don't like to say failure. You could walk into entrepreneurship or business owning and you start something that doesn't succeed, but guess what? You learn so many things out of that. I mean,
Yeah.
you talk to, right, these multimillionaires, billionaires, majority of them have filed bankruptcy once or twice. But what happens? They learn, they get up, they keep going.
Yeah.
I've been through bankruptcy in 2008. I almost lost everything in 2023. Uh, but thanks to the grace of God and me continuing forward and saying, okay, what did I learn here? And
Sure.
taking that and fixing my issues. Uh, when that happened in 2023, I had about 12 locations and I thought I was going to lose everything. I sold off multi seven figures of real estate. Uh, but we bounced back. Here we are, 70 locations. And right, we
Sure.
kept going where most people would quit. There's a
Sure.
really good book about it called 3 Feet from Gold. Uh, right when you think you're on the brink of failure, you're actually, when you think you're on the brink of breakdown, you're actually on the brink of breakthrough. You're right there, but most people quit right there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so is it safe to say for you and your franchise, if somebody was interested in your RV franchise, does it have to be a full-time job? Can it be a side hustle? How do you approach that for somebody listening that may want to jump in, but they don't want to quit their security of their day job, let's say?
Do have people that come in and they still have a day job, but the long-term goal is for it to become this is
Okay.
what they do full time. Yeah. So as
Sure.
far as a side hustle, no, it's definitely not a side hustle. And one of the coolest things about what we do is we're a tight-knit community of Christian entrepreneurs. So we meet together regularly. My wife just led a book club last night for all the ladies. Tonight we have what's called Fireside Chats. Uh, which I typically come out and teach, and then we do Q&A. Actually, I got
Yeah.
invited last minute to come to a private dinner for the founder of Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to
Oh,
that tonight. So that's real exciting. Uh,
cool.
and then Thursday nights, we do a men's book club. We have open office. So we're constantly meeting. We do meetups.
Sure.
We have what's called an inner circle. We do, so it's very intentional. The goal is for people to step into this eventually full time. But
Sure.
in the franchise world, though, there are things that you can plug into where eventually you could build a team, which I have several of my locations that have done that. They built a team and they have people in
Okay.
place. Dathan, who's been with me for almost a decade, he's on a 2 week cruise in Belize right now, and then he just got back from somewhere else, and he's done the hard work. He's learned the
Yep.
business. Now he's built a team.
Nice. That's fantastic. There's so much here, Gar. I could sit and talk to you all day. I got a couple questions before I let you go. What would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? Maybe it's something that we covered already. Maybe it's something that we haven't shared yet. But what would your tip of the day be today?
So based on our conversation and how it's kind of been going, my tip would be Proverbs 14:23. In all labor there is profit. And one of my mentors, Myron Golden, you familiar with Myron Golden?
I'm not, no.
Oh, check him out. Phenomenal, phenomenal entrepreneur. Myron Golden says, all work works. It either works on you or it works for you. And so for, especially with this our conversation today about, corporate America, but you want to start a business or become an entrepreneur, that's the key right there is understanding that in all labor there is profit. So you
Sure.
might be in corporate America right now. Maybe you tried something, right? You signed up to sell Amway or this or that, and you gave it a shot and it didn't work for you. I would challenge you to just go get quiet, go sit in a hot tub, right? And think about this for a minute. Hey, yeah, I tried something before and it didn't work, but what did I learn when I did that? And
Yeah.
I guarantee you, you'd realize, holy smokes, I learned a lot of things that shaped me and formed me to make me a better person. So just keeping that in mind, business ownership is not easy, entrepreneurship is not easy, but as long as you keep moving forward, like my friend Gabriel says, forward movement brings clarity. Just know that in all labor there is profit. You're learning, you're growing, but the problem is we stop going, so we stop growing. We got to keep going, so you keep growing, and then eventually you get to that.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people struggle with the wrong, like you said, you're either winning or you're learning. And I think a lot of people, if we would do a fill in the blank, it's winning or blank, most people would say losing. And I totally get that piece. I just like the learning piece better, like you said, because it just feels like it's not the end. Losing feels, like we're in the Olympics right now, and like you lose, you're done. You go home. I mean, and maybe you'll have something in 4 years or whatever. That's where I think learning is so much different as you can get right back up. It's kind of like baseball. You struck out. Well, you know what? In nine batters, you're going to hit again. So there's that piece that's different. I really like that you're talking about. So Proverbs 14:23, in all labor there's profit. What a cool tip of the day. So one last question, Gar. If there's somebody listening right now and they want to learn more about you, maybe they want to understand more about the RV world, the Fireside RV rental. They want to learn about, some of the other businesses that you've worked on. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Jump on my website, Garr, Garr, Russell, RUSSELL.com. You can see our businesses. You can download any of my books for free. You can find them on Amazon too if you like to hold a book in your hand. And that'll have the link to our YouTube, all the different things.
So that's the best way to connect. It's Gar Russell, Garr, and then Russell, RUSSELL.com. Go
Yes, sir.
there and connect with Gar. Thank you so much. Again, never met a chief fire starter before, so congratulations on that. I love the RV concept. If I had an RV and I wanted to rent it to you, that's an option as well. If I wasn't using it full time, is that kind of how you've been growing your network?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We're an RV rental management company. So the almost 1,000 RVs that we have around the country, they're owned by families. They're not using them. And the cool thing about our program is it literally turns from a liability into an asset. It
Yeah,
doesn't appreciate, but you get
sure.
to depreciate it under federal tax code. You get to write off repairs and storage. All those things become a write-off now, and then also the potential of earning rental revenue off of it. So yeah, it's a huge blessing for families who have RVs just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, that's crazy. We have a place that rents space and there's just RVs all in the parking lot covered and just sitting there for, I don't know, 45 weeks out of the year, something like that. So what a great opportunity. So good job. Are there other companies that are doing that you're aware of, or are you guys pretty unique in this space?
We're the only franchise opportunity, and we're the only one at the scale that we're at. As far as our
Gotcha.
competitors, they're mom and pop shops with maybe one or two
Sure.
locations.
Yeah.
What you said right there, the place with RVs, that's what a lot of our franchisees do. They literally go partner with a storage facility. So all the RVs sit right there, so you don't need real
Yep.
estate.
Yep.
The owner's paying for the storage. The especially if it's a mom and pop storage facility, they'll
Sure.
market you right to
Mhm.
their customers. You build your fleet right there,
Wow.
and you've got a business. So it's low overhead. It's other people's assets, and this is all glory to God. He showed me other people's RVs,
Yeah.
uh, and then what you do, that we call it step five of our success path. It's the generational wealth piece. Then once you've got a fleet of about 25 units that are all paying storage, then you go and either purchase that storage facility. So now
Oh,
you have real estate, or you go
sure.
find your own facility, and then you incorporate repairs,
Wow.
propane, all the things you can sell RVs on consignment. It opens to a whole other world of
Sure.
revenue and everything. So it's pretty
Sure.
cool.
Wow. So it's just like the bread at your restaurant. So hopefully, when I'm in Florida, I'm going to look this up and make sure and check and see if you got bread for sale because this is a great idea. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So thanks, Gar, so much for hanging out with us and appreciate your viewpoints and love where this is headed. And for people listening. Again, rather than jump into your next podcast or your next activity, just sit with this for a minute because this might be something that you've never thought of, whether it's franchising, whether it's drilling down into the RV world. I mean, Gar gave us some really great steps on how to build a business out of this. And so I love those pieces. So if you're always looking to improve, like Gar said, or if you're not satisfied, this might be an opportunity for you to own a business or to be a franchisee or an entrepreneur. So again, thank you, Gar, so much for everything, and can't wait to keep learning from you.
Thank you, sir.